go and take a look at our assignment, the TPA. That's the teacher performance assessment that you'll be completing in clinical practice. So this assignment, this lesson plan design, is supposed to transfer skills to your future tasks that you'll be asked to do during that student teaching clinical practice. So there's a lot here. So let me just get down to kind of the specifics, then you could read through all of it. Number one is that you will be creating a lesson plan, but there's a process to do that. To do the process, right, you'll look at the task. And in the task, right, there are two parts. You have your original submission, which will be due on November 19th, and then a revised submission, which is due on December 3rd. So that's number one. There are two parts, two different submission dates. The first part involves you first creating a 3-lesson segment, which comes from your unit plan. So it's already created, but you will be using this template here. And then from that 3 segment, you choose one lesson. This is something you would do in your Cal TPA Cycle 2 submission. So this learning segment template looks like this. That's not it, sorry. That's it, there we go. And now this link takes us to SharePoint, so make sure that you can log on there. So again, you will do this in a separate class, but this is your initial introduction to it. So you will follow the instructions here. You are gonna 3-lesson segment. You will go through these details, and what you're going to be submitting to me is the content in this lesson segment overview. So that's what you're using for that component. And these are all the essential questions and big ideas that you are tasked with thinking about, coming up with some things that would fit that within that 3 segments. So it's not a lesson plan, right? You're pretty much taking your stuff from your unit plan and then aligning it to these ideas. So it's really, again, an introduction to some of these terms that you will or have been exposed to. So keep that in mind. So that is creating the 3-lesson segment. The next thing is to then choose one of those lessons from that 3-day segment and then create a lesson plan. Now, you're going to create the lesson plan in 2 parts. There's kind of an overall checklist that gives you a kind of a mental model of what to think about when designing a lesson. Bell ringers, what to do, warm-ups, whatever you call them, how you get their interest. So you can go through that, right? So this is a mental model. Come up with some expanded explanations for that. And then also some examples of strategies that kind of match some of those. Again, these are not exhaustive. They're just some to show you. Now, what you're going to be submitting is the detailed lesson plan that looks like this. So this is for your lesson plan. This is before making the formal lesson plan. You do informal detailed lesson. These are kind of like notes. What are the objectives? Again, some of the stuff you may already have in your unit plan. Now it's you just being more specific, each of you thinking about what these can be. And of course, you can work together with that, or you can use the AI resources, and specifically the one that I created for us, which we'll talk about in a separate video. So you will be creating this. That's the first part of the, sorry, I don't want to use the parts, but that's the first aspect here of this development detailed lesson plan. And then you would transfer those ideas into the lesson plan template, which is in SharePoint. Also, the link takes you to SharePoint, is the TPA lesson plan. So again, if you've done the first parts well, then this should be pretty easy in transferring over. Again, it's the act of using the content and materials that you'll be using in your future, which is coming up pretty soon. So you will see this here. And this usually is kind of the pain in the butt stuff that when I'm working clinical practice student teachers, that it takes too much time. Yeah, it probably does, but this is where we're practicing now. So that's the part 1 of this assignment. Part two, that's what you would submit to me by November 19th. Part two is then, after you submit it, you share, I will review it, but then you will share it with someone in your group, your unit plan group. So they'll give you some feedback based off of these rubrics here. And these are rubrics. These are not that rubric. These are rubrics that you're graded on with Cal TPA. So some will give you some feedback just based off of that. To the best of your ability, you're not experts yet, but you'll be using rubrics to give you feedback, and then you will have some revisions. Every lesson plan is going to have some revision with some feedback. And it's through that feedback that you revise, and then you submit by December 3rd, a revised lesson plan. So you're not submitting all the other parts, just the revised lesson plan as it states here, these submission guidelines here. Part one, your detailed lesson plan. Part two, the lesson plan that's been transferred into the TPA style lesson plan. And then part two, a single document with the original lesson plan and highlighted changes or annotations. Where did you make some updates? That's it. Now, I want to let you know that I'm moving over, that I want to embed AI in my courses. So I've created a notebook. I'll do a separate one, but you can use AI. Just be aware of the disclosure that you're upfront about what aspects, especially if they're instrumental in the lesson of where. So that helps me to get a sense of how you're using it and where this is effective for future educators. So keep that in mind, and I'll do a separate